job. The people fight back. Please welcome Chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael Whatley, Secretary of State of Ohio, Frank LaRose, and Vice Chair, Center for Election Integrity, America First Policy Institute, Hogan Gidley.
Alrighty. Guys, how you doing?
Sir.
Good to see you. Hey, CPAC, how's everybody doing? Now, you know why they have us three up here is because they wanted to do a dry run for when Trump gets here and the raucous crowd. So we're basically exactly how it's going to be when Trump is here, just so everyone's clear. Guys, what a huge, huge, massive victory we had in this past election. I still, now you can clap for that. I still can't believe it sometimes when I look up and I see Donald Trump in the Oval, and it just still means so much to me. I know it means so much to you guys because you're the ones who got in there. Yeah. You're the ones who did the work. You're the ones who went to the neighbors and explained to them why our policies made their lives better and how Joe Biden had been kicking us in the teeth if they didn't feel it already, for heaven's sakes. But at Palm Beach, election night, I'm down there doing all the media stuff, and Trump's about to come up. And one reporter comes by me and he says, "So what do you think? This is kind of like 2016 vibes, right?" I was like, "Are you insane? 2016? I was like, yeah, he beat Hillary Clinton. No one thought that was going to happen. But since then, the indictments, the mugshot, raiding his home, going through his wife's underwear drawer, for heaven's sakes, trying to get rid of his, his businesses, going after his friends, his family, his coworkers, his colleagues. Not one, but two assassination attempts. Not one, but two opponents, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It's not even close to how it was in 2016. Also, he wins all the swing states and he wins the popular vote. I mean, no one saw that coming. Yeah. And on election night, I don't know about you guys, but I was still really, really nervous. As those results were coming in, even after they called Pennsylvania, I'm like, we're still too short. I'm freaking out here. But I knew the work put in by so many governors and secretaries of state, attorneys general across this country to make it too big to rig, to make it easy to vote but hard to cheat, was going to hold. And the two men next to me were instrumental in making sure the vote was legitimate. And North Carolina led the way in 2020, holding steady. We know we got the North Carolina ladies somewhere, I'm sure they're there. So Trump gave you a big directive on trying to make what you did in North Carolina a thing all over the country. Talk a little bit about what you were able to accomplish, what you saw from 2020, how you fixed it, and how we're going to keep it that way moving forward.
For you to win in a battleground state or a battleground district, you need three things. You need a great candidate, run a great campaign. Check. You got to get out the vote. Check. You have to protect the ballot. You have to protect the ballot. So what we wanted to do is set up a program. We had three real components. Number one, you have to have the right rules of the road in place before the voting starts. Only American citizens can vote. You have to have a voter ID. States need to clean up their voter rolls, and you've got to have basic protections for your mail-in ballots. Has to happen before voting starts. And then second, you have to be in the room. You have got to be in the room with poll workers, with poll observers, and with attorneys. So we set out to build the largest election integrity program in the history of the country, the first time we've ever done it nationally. We recruited tens of thousands of poll workers. We recruited 6,500 attorneys, 230,000 volunteers. And in every single one of our battleground states and districts, we were in the room every single time a vote was cast or a vote was counted. And third, you have to talk about this. You have to go out and you have to communicate to all of the voters that you are going to be protecting the ballot. because we had 5% of Republican voters said we are way less likely to go vote because we think that cheating is going to cancel out our vote. Right. If we had 5% of the voters in Arizona stay home, we lose. If we have 5% of Republican voters in Pennsylvania stay home, we lose. Right. Right? So we had to make sure that they understood. The flip side, and this is where Laura Trump, by the way, what a great job Laura Trump did, was make it clear in every single conversation, if you cheat, we will find you and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. And so we were able to communicate very effectively all across the country. In fact, Laura and I we edited up over 1,000 TV and radio hits on election integrity alone all across the country. That's the program that we needed to have in place so that we could get there. And I have to say, one of the best things that we saw across this country was in red states and in battleground states where we had Republican governors, Republican secretaries of state, Republicans in the legislature. We were able to work with them to get those rules of the road the right way. Nobody was better across the country at working with us than Frank LaRose from Ohio.
Yep. No question. Now,
thank you.
He told me backstage I could call him Frank, but he said you have to call him Secretary the whole time.
That's not true. Absolutely.
So, Frank, you and I talked right after 2020. Yeah. We had a meeting about this very topic, and you were talking about, even though we had won Ohio and it was really trending solidly red at this point, you still saw some problems. Absolutely. And as we know, doing things in a state kind of becomes the blueprint for other states. So you've led the way on some of the things in Ohio. Talk about what you found and how you worked to fix it there.
Yeah, Ohio's emerged as a gold standard, but we don't rest on our laurels, right? And first of all, Chairman Whatley and his team, they knew the assignment and they succeeded at it. But in states across the country, we need to be working on list maintenance. That's like hygiene, like brushing your teeth. You do it every day. We remove dead people from the voter rolls on a monthly basis. That shouldn't be controversial, right? We make sure that only citizens are registered to vote in our state. I testified in front of Congress last year, and a couple of the Democrats said, all right, LaRose, there's no such thing as non-citizens on the voter rolls. I said, how do you explain the 700 that I caught in the last couple months? Well, guess what? In Ohio, we catch them, we refer them for prosecution. We make sure that our voter rolls are accurate. We also fight, not settle, these last-minute lawsuits. When the radical left comes suing us weeks before the election, they have bad intentions. We don't settle those lawsuits, we fight them. This year alone, last year rather, I was 7-0 against this creep named Mark Elias. We beat him when he tried to change the election laws in Ohio. And here's something else we do. We had to have smart policies for these things called drop boxes. Now listen, I'm not a fan of drop boxes, but my job in the executive branch is to carry out the law. Our state legislature makes those available at our county boards of elections, but I put them under video surveillance 24/7, and they're webcast. Anybody can go watch those. We made sure that they were emptied multiple times a day. And I also put rules in place that said you can only return your own ballot to the drop box if you're returning somebody else's ballot, like a disabled person, which the law allows, or a family member. You got to bring it inside. We're doing this to prevent ballot harvesting, and that's the biggest danger with drop boxes.
No question, no question. Again, great work over there. Chairman, with the Democrat Party, we are very aware of the fact that to them, their God is government. They do this nonstop from sunup to sundown, Monday through Sunday. It's not just in election years like Republicans used to do, it's all the time. So they are preparing, scheming, plotting for this midterm as well. As Frank said, we don't want to rest on our laurels. We want to be prepared for the new wave of problems we could face at the ballot box. So what is the RNC doing to kind of get out ahead of the next the next big election, rather, but all the other little things that could come up?
Look, I think the first thing is that when Laura and I came in March, we had 8 months till Election Day to build a national program for the first time ever. And we really focused on the 7 battleground states. We played a lot in New York and California because of the congressional seats. And then we were working, you know, in Virginia and Minnesota and New Hampshire in case they got traction, right? But now we have 2 years. Now we have time to build this out and truly into a national fashion. We filed 175 lawsuits last year across the country to get those laws in place up front. Now we have the opportunity to go into every state and make sure that every single state is going to have the right rules of the road. We also have a chance to work with Congress. You know, Brian Stile, who's the chair of the House committee that takes care of election integrity, Ron Johnson is the Senate committee chair, are doing great work. We're going to work with them to make sure that we have national laws that are going to be implemented, right? Right now, it's illegal in every state. It's a federal law that only American citizens can vote. And every single state has got to clean up their voter rolls every day, right? Why do we not have a federal law that says you have to have voter ID? I think we should, right? There are other things that we need to put in place right now through Congress, and we're going to take this time to work with Congress, the governors, and the states to make it even stronger.
It's so important. And you know, guys, when we first started looking at election integrity, you and I did years ago, we both did, one of the things that was shocking to me as we were polling this data and information and trying to find out what people liked about election integrity laws, we had, you know, 87% of people wanted photo identification, not voter identification, but photo identification. They wanted, 84% wanted ballots being returned to election officials by election day. All of these things were happening. But I said, you know what I want you to do? I want you to poll the number of Americans who believe only Americans should vote in American elections. Now, I thought that would be 90% easy. 3 years ago, it was 60%. And I went to the pollster and I said, that is so not true. Did you phrase it right? And he goes, no, I phrased it right. And he said, the difference is about 30 to 40% of America want open borders. And I thought, well, that's weird. In 2 years, after we had governors who said, you know what? You want illegal aliens? You want sanctuary cities? Fine, you got them. After those same people that were polled that said we want open borders got a taste of what it was like to have your communities flooded with people who don't have the right to be here, who are taking, you know, your resources from your schools, from your hospitals, from your first responders, et cetera, they said, you know what? Maybe only Americans should vote in American elections. And that number went from 60 to 92% in just a few short years. That shows you how much the policy matters. And as you're talking about doing some stuff from the federal level, I think that's important because we still, as a party, we believe in federalism, because what works in Mississippi may not work in Montana or Maine or Massachusetts. But there's some common denominators there that you're talking about, that now we have the House, now we have the Senate, and Lord knows we got the White House at this point.
Yep.
We need to work together to make sure that happens. And Frank, before I get to you here, understand to me what's vital. Donald Trump has done something here I think is so important. All of his cabinet secretaries, which, let's be honest, what an all-star team he's got, they're not only well-suited and well-experienced to do the job that they've been asked to do, they're also good on television. And that matters because we have to continue to sell what we're doing to the American people. We have a history of just passing something and then going, the people get it. It's fine. They'll figure it out. No, 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 no. We have to pass it and remind them every day why it's so important and why what we're doing makes their lives better regardless of race, religion, color, or creed. And he's got the right team to do it. And with you, Frank, in Ohio, you already got, there's some Ohio, I hear, there you go, there you go. Knowing where the landscape is nationally, knowing what you're doing, talk about some of the things you're doing with other states, though, that at the state level, as you built out the blueprint and you kind of showed them the way, who you're working with, what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so I just finished a year as the chairman of the Republican Secretaries of State organization. So working with my fellow Republican Secretaries of State across the country, I'm helping them see some of the things that we've learned the hard way in Ohio. Ohio and Florida have sort of been in the national spotlight for 25 years, right? And so we've learned these lessons. We want to help apply those in other states. One of these examples, by the way, is not allowing foreign nationals to fund campaigns in your state. By the way, this is happening. Issue campaigns. We prohibited that in Ohio. It's hard to enforce, but I've got an investigative division that works to do this. I testified in the Kansas state legislature last week, and they just passed a bill saying that only American citizens can donate money to a campaign. That's just one example. But here's something else, and that's a great thing. The great thing about CPAC is it's a gathering of conservatives from all over the country, and we can get on message about how we talk about these things. So here's a couple things to think about. Let's put this idea to rest that somehow Republicans want to suppress the vote. It is utter nonsense. The left accuses me of wanting to suppress the vote. If that's my objective, I stink at it, because we've had massive turnout in Ohio, and guess what? Republicans have won in record-breaking elections. We don't want to suppress, but we do want to make sure it's honest, and integrity drives participation. People are more likely to vote in an election when they know it's honest. Here's something else on citizenship. Ask a group of new Americans, people that have worked hard to earn their citizenship, have stood there and taken the oath and raised their right hand. Ask them if we should callously give away something that they worked so hard to earn. Those new American immigrants would tell you, protect citizenship, make sure that only citizens vote. And so don't let the left get away for a moment in saying that it is racist to say that only American citizens should vote in our elections. Right. Nonsense.
Yeah. That's right. Absolutely. And as we kind of come up on the close of this panel, I'm going to put you on the spot, Whatley. If you could do one election integrity piece, either at the state or federal level, that you think would make the most difference in making sure that the trust and faith and confidence in our elections either returns or retains, either way, what would that be?
I think a national voter ID is absolutely going to be essential. You know, and what I really appreciate is that Donald Trump is the first president, he's the first candidate who really truly made election integrity a core function of the campaign. You know, I had breakfast with him right when I became the chair, and he said, all right, Michael, what's the plan? How are we going to win? And I said, we're going to do two things, only two things. We're going to get out the vote, and we're going to protect the ballot. And we talked a lot about what it was going to, what that was going to look like. And as we got up to leave, he said, I'll tell you what, Michael, how about I get out the vote and you protect the ballot? Our mandate across this entire country as a Republican Party is election integrity. Right. And I'd like to just ask, how many people here worked on an election integrity program, made a phone call, knocked on a door, or served as a poll worker? Awesome. Give yourselves a round of applause. As we go into this next election cycle in 2026, it is going to be absolutely critical that we do not walk away from this program that we put in place over the last election cycle. We absolutely have to build on it. And when everybody in this room and everybody watching all across the country says, yes, you know what, I'm going to go participate. Right. I'm going to do a 4-hour shift or an 8-hour shift or work an entire day in the polls to make sure that we're there in the room, then we are truly going to be able to keep all of our ballots protected.
No question, and he's right, guys. And it's something we say in the South a lot, which is if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. You got to be in the rooms, folks. You got to do the work. And just because we won this time does not mean we'll win next time. Donald Trump is the single biggest driver of voter turnout I have ever seen in my 25 years in politics. It's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to duplicate that without each of you getting engaged and staying engaged. Last question, same to you. Yeah. One thing you would do differently, or something that in Ohio fixed things?
If you don't have a Republican Secretary of State in your state, make sure to work hard in 26 to elect one.
That's right.
And then hold them accountable to actually do list maintenance. It's hard work. We have to work every day to take non-citizens off the voter rolls, to take dead people off the voter rolls, to make sure when people move out of our states, they're taken off the voter rolls. That's probably the most important thing your Secretary of State does on a daily basis.
No question. Well, thank you guys very much. Listen, I want to thank Matt and Mercy. I want to thank each of you for being here today, being engaged, being involved. And just real quickly, I don't want to speak for both of you, but you and I have had a chance to travel North Carolina quite a bit, go to a lot of counties, do a lot of Lincoln Day dinners and other things. It always fascinates me what we're able to do in this country that we can't do anywhere else on the planet. This nation affords opportunity like nowhere, and I think everyone understands that, and that's why you're here, and you want to be engaged and involved. And for someone like me, and being born in a small town in North Carolina, of course, and raised in a smaller town in Arkansas, I'm a nobody from nowhere. I shouldn't get to go into a White House. I shouldn't get to know a president or fly on Marine One or be in the Beast or Air Force One or any of those things. But I got to do that every single day for 4 years with Donald Trump in his first term. And it blows my mind when I think about it because, again, I didn't have a last name like Bush or Cheney or Kennedy or Clinton. Thank God it wasn't a Clinton. But you understand, I don't have that blue blood political last name. But I get to do the things I did. And I would go in the White House every day in my office, and you guys know the picture of the West Wing when you have those two Marines standing out front. That window over the right Marine's shoulder is my office. And I got to go into the White House every single day and stand right in front of Donald Trump, right in front of the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, and give him advice. Now, he never took a word of it, not a single word. But that's not the point. It's only in this country would someone like me get to give it. And I am confident with the record-setting success Donald Trump had in the first term, the success he's already had in this second term, and your engagement from top to bottom in every room across every state to fight to get this guy reelected like you did, to fight to keep the House, to keep the Senate, that this country is going to remain that shining city on a hill. So thank you very much. Appreciate y'all coming out.
Thanks, everybody.
Robert Fico, four-time Prime Minister of Slovakia, a small, proud country in the heart of Europe. In May last year, an opposition activist tried to assassinate him for his policies.